Hi there, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Delivered Podcast. I'm your host, Athena Estelle, and I am so glad that you've joined us this week. We're so glad that you're tuning in to hear what we're going to chat about this week. I am here with one of my local girlfriends, Ashley. She is a fantastic mom. She's a wonderful encourager. She is an empath just like me. So we are just so glad that you're here, Ash. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. Okay, so we have to start at the beginning of our friendship because this was a more recent adult friendship. So I'm going to tell like my quick clip notes and then you can tell your version. We agreed pre-recording that this was May of 24 and we both go to the nail spot at the end of my street, like just right around the corner here. And I remember I was getting my nails done. I think it was for my daughter's birthday and I really liked the color that you had. And most of the time I'm outgoing, but not at the nail salon. I feel like I just want to see what they're doing, talk to my girl and just like in and out. So I remember I looked over and I was like, oh my gosh, I love your color. And you're like, oh, I love yours. And we were just like chatty. And then I remember as I was going to leave, I was thinking in my head, just ask her for her number. She might think that you're a psycho, but just ask her. And yeah, so that's how I remember it. But you on the other side, how was that experience for you?
No, same exactly how you described it. You sit down, you got your headphones in, you're focused on what's happening, you have your me time. We started chatting and I'm like, okay, like I like your vibe. I like your energy. And then literally it was just so natural. Like we just kept, I don't know what we talked about. I can't remember what we talked about, but it was so fantastic just to have that different experience, like actually being able to talk to somebody without feeling like awkward or uncomfortable. And then, like, I don't remember if you got a pedicure that day, but I think you got done maybe first. And then you came back and you were like, can I get you over? I was like, absolutely. Oh my God, please, let's hang out. I would love to. And I just, I think we met up again. That was our thing. Like we would go get our nails done and have a little girl time. And I never would have imagined meeting a friend at a nail salon. It also is not crazy to meet a friend at a nail salon either.
Yeah.
I think,
So funny. Yeah, I remember I came home and I was like, I officially know how it feels to be a boy and ask a girl for their phone number. And Chris was like, what? He's what? And I was like, so I met this girl. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, at the nail salon. She sat next to me. Her name is Ashley. We're very similar. I think we're friends. And he was like, okay. And I was like, and I asked for her phone number. And it was very awkward, but she gave it to me.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
And he goes, if she doesn't like you, she's not going to text you and get her nails done with you. She'll find a new nail spot. And I was like, facts. So here we are.
Here we are. 2 years later.
A year and a half later, I survived. That's awesome. So since then, we've talked a lot about life, a lot about motherhood. On this week's episode, we're really going to focus on overall just the neuro side of having a child with differences. And so that's why I wanted to bring you on because you have a lot of experience in that area. But before we dive on in, give the listeners just a little background into you and into your pregnancy journey and whatever you'd like to share.
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Minnesota, but then I moved to Florida in 2014. July 2014, my mom got a job here and I was about to graduate college, but I was doing like distance-based learning. So I was like, oh, this might be a great opportunity. Go to Florida, leave the winters, don't deal with snow and ice and all that. Came to Florida. I've worked with children ever since I was 16 years old. I've been a teacher. I started at the YMCA, was a teacher, became a preschool teacher. Even when I came to Florida, I got a job as a preschool teacher up until I graduated in 2016 from North Dakota State. My degree is actually in child development and family science. So I was like, oh, I'm going to just work my way up in the education system. Then I had an opportunity presented to come on board at a local hospital to work in human resources. Ironically enough, my mom and my grandma have built their careers in HR. And they both work for a railroad company up in Minnesota. And then when my mom came here, she started working for a local railroad company as well. And the things that I would see them do from an HR perspective, I was like, I don't think that's necessarily what I want to do. However, obviously being not, it was a nonprofit, like I said, local hospital, nonprofit organization. And I was helping with onboarding, bringing in new hires and screening them, all that. And then I transitioned over to my current position. I was there for 5 years, and then I transitioned over to my current position where I work now for a construction company. Still in HR, still onboarding folks. I do work with our U.S. immigration side. I lead a lot of engagement initiatives. So I definitely have found my niche, if you will. I think I do thrive with working with people. I miss working with kids. I think that's something I will always miss about my early 20s is when I was working with little kids. I've definitely grown a lot in that in my career. I've grown a lot in my career. All that to say, when I was still at the hospital, I got pregnant. So I met my husband in 2015, July 2015, almost exactly a year after I moved here. I met my husband. At the time, I met David, and then we dated for several years, and we got married in 2024. But prior to that, we had a child in 2018, Jackson. Love of our lives, the most beautiful human being. Everybody says it about their children, right? But he is a blessing. He brings so much joy to everybody's life. I think that was a turning point for me as a mother, transitioning from focusing on my career, but now I'm a mom. How do I manage both? Mm-hmm. So I think that's been a really intense journey, but out in the best ways. I think part of my history with children, having an understanding of different temperaments or different how to engage or how to redirect, or I think I've always felt like I know what to do. I'm going to be a great mom. Everything is perfect. I'm ready for that journey. And then when the journey came, you learn as you go. When I found out I was pregnant, I had honestly a really easy pregnancy. I had, prior to moving here, I did have ectopic pregnancy, but then I moved here, got pregnant with Jackson, and that pregnancy was perfect. Honestly, the only thing I didn't like to eat chicken. I had a couple food aversions. I had heartburn, mad heartburn. So I was popping Tums like hard candy. Long, but really good pregnancy. I had great doctors. I was working at the hospital at the time, so it was nice because I would be at work and I could go to the next building for my OB appointment. So it just worked out really perfectly. The timing aligned really well. I found out in December 2017 that I was pregnant, and I surprised my husband. I found out Christmas Eve. I took a test that morning. Aww. And I waited all day to tell him because I was freaking out. I was like, this is not real. This is not real. This is not happening. Not in a negative way, obviously. This is happening. So finally that night I surprised him. I told him, and we waited until New Year's to tell everybody because we were so excited. And then fast forward to July, I was at my mom's house. Actually, my mom was out of town, and I stayed at me and my boyfriend at the time, my husband now, stayed at my mom's house just to house watch and make sure, get her mail and all that fun stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't feel right. Something like my stomach, I felt like my stomach was in a vice, kind of. I was like, something's not right. I was cramping. I could chalked it up to maybe Braxton Hicks, because at this point, I was due August 27th that year. So I'm like, I'm a couple weeks away from delivery. It might be Braxton Hicks. So ultimately, did not go away, and it got more intense. So we went to the hospital, the emergency room, and they admitted us right away and got us in there and said, we're going to do all these checks with ultrasound. Got my first cervix check, which was pretty traumatic without knowing what that even was. I don't want to say I wasn't educated enough on, I didn't really have a plan. I just wanted it to be free flowing. I knew I wanted skin to skin. I knew I didn't want anyone but my husband in the room. But outside of that, I really didn't think about like how much goes into the labor process. And that's me being naive a little bit and just like loving the experience. Anyway, had that done. They did admit me for a night just to watch and see what happened. They didn't really say, they did mention that I was in early labor, potentially, but they had to do a bunch of tests and all that. So they kept me overnight. I was discharged the next morning. They said, everything looks okay. Baby's fine. If you're still feeling it, come back. And I was feeling better. They gave me a bunch of whatever. They hooked me up to a bunch of stuff and it was fine. So we went back home. The next night, so that was a Friday. So then on Sunday night, I was feeling it again. And it was way more intense. So we went to the hospital that I worked at downtown. Did the same thing, got admitted to the emergency room, and we were in there for a couple of days. I can't remember what shot it was, but I had to get a shot to make sure that his lungs were going to develop. They were concerned that I was going to possibly go into early labor. So I stayed there for a couple of days. I remember getting popsicles all the time. My face was like beet red because of the whatever thing they had me hooked up to was like would make you really hot. And it was funny too because I had coworkers come and visit me and be like, "Are you okay? They're really fine," and which really helped just to kind of get through what I was dealing with. So then, I mean, everything ultimately, I was discharged. I went home. I was told to be on bed rest for the rest of my pregnancy. Let me back up. It was limited bed rest or whatever that minimal bed rest or limited bed rest, something like that. Basically, don't vacuum your house. Don't lift anything heavy. You don't have to, we can continue working because that was my main concern. I'm like, can I keep working? Because I'm bloody. I didn't have paid maternity leave. So that was a big concern of being off for 3 months without any income on my end. So that was my focus was like, how do I keep working? But I did go back to work and I never felt any more pain. It worked out. August 22nd was a Wednesday or Thursday. I was at work. It was 2:00 in the afternoon. I'm sitting at my computer. I'm like, okay, something's happening. Something's going on. At the time, I was delivering at the hospital. Why I went home is beyond me because I could have literally walked over to my OB and just be like, hey, I'm feeling like something's happening. So I drove home to my husband. I was like, something's not right. So I lay down and it really started ramping up. So we were timing it. It was funny because we had just did the car seat and put it in the car. So we have the instruction book from the car seat install. So he's sitting there writing my contractions, like this time, how long it was. So I wish I still had it. I kept it for so long and then I don't know what happened to it, but that was just funny to me. Anyway, ultimately we called the OB and I'm like, I think I'm in labor. I'm pretty sure I'm in labor. And then I had a contraction on the phone when I was talking to them and she's just breathe. And I'm like, internally I was freaking out, but I didn't know why I was freaking out. I didn't know if it was because this is actually happening or am I scared because of what I'm feeling? Or so drove back to the hospital that I had just left, got admitted, went right in. They got me in a room. So at the hospital, it's not an LDRT. So I was in one room. I labored in one room and then I was ultimately transferred to a different room. So the room we were in got me hooked up. I called my mom. My mom came. My husband was there. Called all of our family, let them know, hey, it's time. And they had to break my water. My water didn't break. They had to break my water, which was a really weird experience as well. So I was like, oh, water, stuff happening down there. Got that done. And then the doctor came in. It was probably 4 or 5 hours after that saying, hey, you're not progressing. So they gave me Pitocin. I also, in between that, I did request an epidural, which was a godsend. And I think everyone can agree it's a great thing in terms of pain management. So I was comfortable. I was laying there. I had no idea. They hooked me up to the monitor. Had no idea that anything was wrong necessarily. So they said, you're not progressing. So they gave me the Pitocin. Then a couple hours later, it was like maybe midnight-ish, came in and said that his heart rate, they couldn't get a steady heart rate. It kept dropping and then it wouldn't go up. So immediately, and my mom at that time had left the room. So it was just me and my husband. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. They said it's time for a C-section. And I just, without having that plan of, I want to deliver naturally, I want this, that, or the other, I was like, yeah, let's go. But, I was so concerned. Looking back, I wish I would have maybe advocated a little bit more. However, all that to say, it was fine. We went to the C-section, which was also really weird. I remember I was shaking. Like I was physically, like I couldn't stop shaking. And that was so weird to me. But I remember the moment that they finally showed us him. And I waited for him to cry. And I remember the moment that I heard him cry, me and my husband both lost it. We held each other and we were just, tears were flowing. Then got back, they wheeled me to the post-recovery area. My husband got to go with my son. I didn't even get to hold him. I didn't get to touch him. I was to see him. So I was so anxious. And I have a video of my mom remembering she walked into the room, she took a video, and I love watching that video over and over because that's the first time I met my son. And I was just, "Oh, you're here." But it was a beautiful overall. We were only there, I think, after that for a day and a half, maybe 2 days, not even. They took us to a different room to monitor him and get his stuff figured out. And it was a great overall, I would say, great delivery. I didn't have any complications necessarily other than the heart rate thing, but it's something I'll never forget. It's something that will always like be such a core memory for me. And when I watch videos of like other moms going through it, you can't help but cry because you always think of what situation. But
Yeah,
overall,
for
it was,
sure.
I had no complaints.
That's awesome. So what was it like when you guys got home? Did you settle into like newborn life easily, or was it tricky, or what did that look like?
We did. I'm so thankful for my husband. He's such a lover. He's got the biggest heart. And he's the best partner, truly. He jumped right in just like I did. Just natural, motherly instincts and all the things that you are scared or worry about. It just came so natural. We did everything. I did try to breastfeed. That was, I think, one thing that I struggled with a little bit because I was so passionate about breastfeeding my child, or my baby at the time, that I knew if I couldn't do it, though, I was okay with moving to a different solution. So ultimately, we took him for his 1 week, or I guess the very next couple days after we went to his appointment. He was fine. He dropped a couple pounds, which is typical. And then the following week, we went back again. He still wasn't gaining weight. So they're like, yeah, you might need a supplement. That wasn't producing enough. And that was really hard. I'll never forget that day after that appointment. We went home and we made a bottle for the first time, because before that, it was exclusively breastfeeding him. Give him a bottle for the first time. My husband actually gave him the bottle for the first time. I was like, I've been doing this. Maybe this is now your opportunity to have that moment. I went in the bathroom and I cried. And that's nothing, I think, just personally, like I think that's when it hit me like, okay, this might not be able to be a thing. Well, let's say it never progressed. My ability to breastfeed never got better. We did end up formula feeding him, and that was tough. I think that was hard for me because I have a great support system around me. We have a large family on my side and my husband's side, and a lot of them have breastfed their children. And I think try these cookies or drink Gatorade or eat or steel cut oats and giving me all this advice, and I was doing all that and it still wasn't happening. So I felt defeated in a way. But also, what is the saying of best? That is best, or best is fed, however, whatever that saying is.
Yeah, just bed is best.
I keep telling myself that. I'm like, he's getting what he needs. While it's not what I envision, it's fine. He's healthy. He's a very healthy boy. He is a very healthy boy. If you meet my son, very healthy boy.
Yeah. It's a harsh reality, though, I feel like.
And
it's really hard to accept. I don't know. I struggled with it. And looking back, like, I should have thrown in the towel probably months before I did.
Really?
Like, now that I lived it, like, I did really well, but I feel like way better at pumping. I was doing really well with pumping, but our breastfeeding was just not as successful. And I probably just should have gone to be an exclusive pumper. But it was just like, I think pride that I was just like, I don't want you to do this.
Yeah.
I want this to be me. And I mean, it was okay until I went back to work. And then it was pumping on the drive there, pumping at lunch, pumping on the way home, feeding her, pumping in the middle of the night. So then, and we started supplementing around like month 5. And that was really when my depression was like climbing. So I feel like my milk started to change and then my supply just like tanked. So I really just should have been like, wash your hands, girl. Like, you did your best. But yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, it's not an easy decision to make. Like, unless there's a health risk or there's something like your child's in danger or your baby's in danger, you try your hardest. And I think that's the whole thing about motherhood too, is you're always going to do what you have to do to make it happen. What? Unless there's danger or risks involved. But he met all the milestones, and that's where we're at. And we did baby-led weaning, giving him little cut up pieces of scrambled egg, banana, asparagus, and carrot as because he developed teeth really early. I think his first tooth came at 5 months, 6 months. I have a picture of it. I should have referenced it, but he developed his teeth pretty quickly. So it was nice because I could try to introduce different foods. We did a lot of the pouches. Obviously, that was love those.
Yeah.
That's so I was so excited the day that he turned 1 because I knew, okay, we're done with bottles. I don't want to wash one more of these things again. As long as I am a mother, I'm not interested in washing another bottle for the rest of my life. That was the bane of my existence.
I remember I like washed them, I sterilized them, and then I like packed them up in this little like bottle organizer and I kept them. And then one day Chris was like in the pantry and he's like, why do we still have these? And I was like, I don't know. I wasn't ready to throw them out. Should I donate them? Should I get rid of them? And he was like, put them in the trash. We are done. We are moving. Like we are moving forward. And I was like, I'm not ready.
It's funny. I had the same thing. I kept those bottles. We moved twice and I still kept those bottles. They were in a plastic bag. I didn't even store them nicely, but I'm like, this is, and actually I'm looking right now. I still have a box of his burp cloths, his burp blankets. I'm so sentimental like that. I still have a closet full of his baby shoes.
Oh yeah. I'm not getting rid of that yet.
Absolutely not. I'm not ready. He's 7, so it's probably time, but no.
Fine. So tell us about, so I know that he was hitting his milestones, he was developing then. When did you have questions? Just like, is this typical? Like what's happening? What did that look like for you?
So I think looking back, I don't think there was really like an aha moment. I think it was more of quiet accumulation, maybe, of like small observations that I would pick up on. He was doing things right on time in terms of like his growth and development, but there were other things that just felt different. And I think the biggest one is his communication. He wasn't really speaking. He would babble. He would say mama, baba, dada, but he wouldn't say much more than those 3 words. Ball, I think, was one, but his transitions from one activity to another might have been a little bit tough. I think his emotions, he was always a happy baby. Don't get me wrong. He was always a happy baby. But I think that's his communication and how he would transition from one activity to another. But obviously, he's a year old. Kids are going to throw tantrums. Kids are going to do what they want to do. So I think I chalked it up to just him being a baby, being his normal baby self. So it wasn't until his 2-year checkup when he turned 2 in August of 2020. We took him to his 2-year checkup, and the doctor had said, since he's not really communicating where he should be, speaking and making sounds and noises and words, they referred us to speech therapy. And even at that point, I was like, I still wasn't even considering autism, but we went to speech therapy, did that. It was once a week at the beginning. And then after about 4, 5, maybe 6 sessions, so we would sit with the speech therapist with my son in a room, and he really wouldn't look at them when they were talking to him. Eye contact was definitely starting to show. Lack of eye contact, rather, was really starting to show when he turned 2. You would say his name, he wouldn't turn his head. He really wouldn't acknowledge, hey, or someone's wanting my attention. So after, like I said, maybe 4 to 6 appointments, I can't exactly remember, they said, I think we're going to go ahead and offer you to go to the autism clinic downtown for therapy. And I was like, what? Oh, like that. And I remember the moment I was like, wait, so that's what you're thinking without any explanation, you're just going to tell me like, hey, you're going to go here and start therapy. And I was like, oh, okay, if that's what he needs, whatever. So all that to say, I went there, and they also implemented occupational therapy at that time. So we went twice a week for 30 minutes. Half the time was speech, half the time was occupational therapy. And I'll never forget the very first appointment. I sat with both the speech therapist and the occupational therapist, and they were angels. Literally, I cannot say enough how much I still think about them. Like they're just the most kind human beings, and just so gentle and loving and all that. But you start talking, he's playing around and doing his thing, and they start talking to me rather, that what are your goals? What are you hoping to accomplish? And I just remember, I was like, in that moment is really when it hit me, when they asked me that question, because my immediate response was, I just want to hear him say, I love you. Like, I want him. I love you. And
I was gonna say you're not supposed to make me cry. Damn.
and I remember the occupational therapist started crying, and the speech therapist came over to me and she held my hand and she was just like,
It's okay. You're okay.
it's just, woo. It's just like, that's all that we will focus on. That will happen in the next 6 months. And it was like, so like, you feel validated a little bit having someone just tell you everything's going to be okay, even though obviously we have family, a great support system. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Holy crap.
Don't be sorry. I'm right there with you.
But yeah, so that happened. And every appointment after that, they would talk at the front desk lady, the person that cleaned the place. Like every time we come home, it was like, hi, Jackson. Just the most loving, caring facility. So then,
and what was that?
So it was through Baptist. Autism.
Is it like the autism and behavioral something?
So it's downtown. Okay. I can't remember. It was like Autism Neurodevelopment Clinic, something like that. They also worked with other children, and they had other patients that weren't necessarily on the spectrum. I mean, at that point, we didn't even know he was on the spectrum, but that's like in our minds where we started heading, right? And trying to think, okay, is this actually what's going to happen? So after we went there for about 6 or 7 months, twice a week, which was a lot because at the time I was still working at the hospital and I had a full-time 40-hour-a-week job. Like it was really difficult. And at the time we were living about 30 minutes away from my work. So I would have to go pick my son up, bring him it was just a lot of coordination. So anyway, after roughly 6 months, the speech therapist, and the OT sat me down and at one of our appointments and just said, I think at this point, we're going to go ahead and refer you to get him diagnosed formally. I don't even remember. I know I immediately went numb because even thinking back on the memory, it's just so numbing to me. I was just like, okay, yep, whatever we got to do. I think at that point it had been so long, I knew that something else had to happen. So that process was extremely time consuming, wait lists, calling around to make sure that they accept your insurance, or do you even have openings? Like what? And at this point, he was 2 years old. He had just turned 2. So finally, after several calls, we did get connected with a pediatric neuropsychologist out in Jack's Beach and brought him. We had to do like a 20-page document and 200 questions that me and David had to answer. Can he kick a ball with his right foot? Can he stand on one foot? And essentially, I think that they did explain this to the process for both that questionnaire. It's meant to be for 1 to 2 year olds all the way up to 10, 11-year-olds. But even though he was 2, we still had to answer all the questions. Did all that and then had a meeting. Me and David had to meet with the neuropsychologist to go over what the responses to those questions were, like what it came back as, indicating maybe there could be something or should we pursue in-person visit with Jackson and the neuropsychologist. So the results said yes, that it would be necessary. Brought Jackson, I think a week later, and she asked him to do things or try to get to know him. And it was about an hour and a half appointment. And then I would say it was probably another week later, if not 2 weeks later, we got the call with the final results, and they did say that he is considered level 2 autistic on the autism spectrum. Rather, I don't like using the word autistic because it sounds to me so ugly, but I know it's not ugly. I try to keep it ASD, autism spectrum, level 2. They explained what the levels were. There's levels 1, 2, and 3. They explained that he can't increase levels. He can't increase to level 3. He can go down though as time goes on, as we get him in more therapy, whatever that looked like. So I think that conversation again was really numbing. I think there was a time period where I just took it and I had no emotion about it. I was just like, okay, what's the next step? We're just going to focus on what.
Yeah, just black.
Yeah. So after that, we tried to figure out what does that look like? Do we continue speech and occupational therapy? Because I had just started a new job with my current company in February. And we started a new job and like, hey, I have to take my kid twice a week to therapy. Luckily for me, I work for a company that is so supportive of work-life balance and family first. They're so good about making sure that you take care of what you need to take care of firstly, for what your position requires. So I was very lucky to end up going to a work from home position where I could then obviously continue my job and doing what I'm doing, but still be there for whatever Jackson's needs were. He wasn't in daycare. We never put him in daycare. We were lucky to have family watch him for the first year, almost 2 years of his life. But then once I started working from home, Jackson would stay home with me. This was post-pandemic. We decided, this was July 2021 now. We decided, okay, maybe it's time for us to, and also the speech and occupational therapist that we were working with suggested it might be good for him to have that behavioral social interaction with other kids. Because we have a lot of cousins and family, but we don't live necessarily like super close to each other where we see each other all the time. So did that, did put him in daycare. And that was also a very interesting experience, explaining to them, hey, this is his diagnosis. He doesn't really talk because he's still not progressing in his communication. We went to one daycare, had a horrible experience at that daycare. I won't call it any names. However, it was horrible. So we took him out of there and started him somewhere else. And I remember getting a phone call from that daycare. He had been there maybe 4 or 5 weeks, got a phone call one day. I'm at work and they called me and said, Jackson's running out of the room. He's not responding to anything that we're saying to him. He's he's climbing on top of the cabinets, the toy bin things. I dropped everything. I went and grabbed him. He never went back there again. And in that same phone call, why he never went back there again, I think was partially due to in that same phone call, I had asked, do you have resources for me? I don't know, what's my next step? I was asking them, the daycare, what resources do you have from a child that is on the spectrum? What I want him to still be in that environment. Unfortunately, they don't have anything. And I remember I hung up on them, and which in hindsight probably wasn't the most respectful thing to do, but I was so frustrated.
What do you mean?
And it was funny, and not funny, but ironic because it was the director that called me. Like director and owner of the facility. And I hope at this point in time that she has maybe looked into how to provide that to her parents or her families. But I think that's the hard part is you have to be an advocate for your child no matter what, if they're on the spectrum or if they're neurodivergent. But that looks different for everybody. We talked about we're both empaths, and that definitely I wear my heart on my sleeve. Like I feel things so deeply, but I also can get angry and direct if I need to. So learning that balance a little bit has been still a journey because it's not coming from a bad place. It's coming from a place of obviously being protective of my kid, but also there's so many other parents and there's so much more conversation and research that's been done around children that are on the spectrum that why are you not aware of what possible resources there are? So we actually went for a 3-year-old annual check-in with a pediatrician, and she recommended, it's called Child Find. So now we moved out to Clay County at this point, where we live now. And basically what it is, it's like self-contained classrooms for children that are diagnosed. It's something that you don't have to pay for. It's state-funded or government-funded program. So we had to apply. The process for that was also another 200-page questionnaire, providing all this documentation, having interviews, having meetings with this person, that person, the next person, which I respect and understand. So did all that. He started at one elementary school about 20 minutes away and did not have a good experience there. He was potty training at the time, and that just didn't work for them. So ultimately, we ended up transferring him to a closer elementary school, and he thrived. When I tell you that when he started there is when he, maybe after a month, 2 months, he started speaking words. They weren't clear. However, and you probably agree, right? When your child says something, sometimes only you and your partner can understand what they're saying. And that's what it was. His first official word, he was sitting in his toy box and he said, hammer. And I was like, what? And I turned my back and he got a hammer in his hand. He said, hammer. I'm like, and again, broke down crying. I was like, oh my God, you, like, that's your first official word outside of being an infant, mama, dada, blah, blah, whatever. So we were there so Jackson's birthday is at the end of August 23rd. So he is considered the youngest of his grade. And that was a concern for us. So when he was ready to transition out of child find and go into actual public school, it was we had a conversation. It was a similar setup to an IEP meeting. We had all these people in there and they all recommended he's doing great. It's better to start him now and let him and see how he progresses in the school system. And then if he doesn't, you hold him back a year because of his age. Well, but start him now. He's already been doing it and he's doing great. So we did. And it was, again, divine timing. They built a school, an elementary school, right across the street from our neighborhood. So,
No way.
Literally, same year he was entering kindergarten. So,
If that ain't Jesus, girl.
it was, like, when I tell you, everything, looking back on the journey, everything just always aligned in the best way for us. And it was so relieving because I know that doesn't happen for everybody, but it was like a relief. I can, again, working from home, I can go, if anything happens, or I'm right there. I'm 2 minutes away. I could throw a rock at the school. So it's also cool too, because he was the first kindergarten class to start at that school.
Oh, that's special.
Yeah. So he was still in a similar setup, self-contained room. He had 3 teachers. So self-contained basically means that the other students, it's a small class size, maybe 8 to 12 kids, if that, and multiple teachers. But all of the students are somehow developmentally delayed. Doesn't necessarily mean they're on the spectrum, but somehow have a developmental delay. So he did that for kindergarten and then first grade. So he has an IEP. We meet with them every couple of months to go over his goals, where his progress is at. And then about halfway through first grade, they came and said, we really would love to see Jackson integrate into the general education class, which is where the typical students were, in a larger class size, but more structure, more focused attention. He had an aide that would sit with him and gradually get him involved. He would only go half day. So he'd start his day out in the self-contained classroom. And then he would transition for an hour or two, and then it would increase throughout the end of the year. So we met at the end of first grade, and they said he's doing great. And his communication is increasing. We got speech therapy and occupational therapy at school. So he would do it in the classroom. And now he's in second grade now and thriving. He's full-time gen ed. We still have an IEP for him. Oh. He has no aid. Okay. He's meeting all of his marks. His test scores are phenomenal. He's a little genius. He loves math. He scored at a 6th grade reading level on the state test, which wasn't really shocking for us because we read all the time and we hear him verbalizing and talking. I also want to mention he has echolalia. So he repeats echolalia. Okay. So he repeats a lot of things that he hears, which what kid doesn't, but in the sense of like certain movie, I'm trying to think of the name of it. When you watch a movie, it has a song, like the production company, Universal Studios or whatever. He'll repeat that and he'll sing the song randomly, even when the movie's not on. Like throughout the day, he'll randomly do that, or things that he watches on his iPad, or he'll randomly just come out with or from a book. He'll repeat things that he read in a book, and when he's not reading the book. So he's very much hears something and then he repeats it. He's still like that a little bit. He definitely has his little things that he likes to say, but now that he's getting older, we have to like hone in on maybe, because now he's also with a bunch of 6, 7 and songs that they're singing, and I'm like, I don't know, that's what we want to be saying when we're at the grocery store, but okay. But we let him be free and let him do what he has to do. More recently, we really honed in on boundaries and what's a truth versus a lie, teaching him stranger danger, You look both ways before you cross the street. We're just now able to do that with him. So that's been nice for him to be receptive of that, whereas before he really wasn't. So just as a parent, knowing we can still teach safety measures to him and he can understand it, that's been really reassuring too. So I'm tracking. But yeah, I think he's thriving, but educationally he's thriving. And that's such a blessing just because you don't know what that journey will look like. Because obviously every kid's going to be different at home versus at school. But Jackson is the same through and through. So far, he's so friendly, so kind. He's got friends that he talks about when I pick him up from school now. He's got little buddies in his class that he's got the boys, and he calls them. There's 4 of them that go to speech therapy every Tuesday and Thursday, and it's just so nice to see him develop generally, but also socially. Because I always think about like the future and what when he gets older, and because kids are mean. That's just, you're gonna face kids that just don't understand. But he is so loved. I'll never forget. I want to mention this story. I'll never forget. In first grade, after he had been transitioned, half day self-contained class, half day general ed class, I went on a field trip with him as a chaperone. And I have a video, and I started crying. These kids, Jackson, come with us, Jackson. Because it was just me and Jackson. Jackson wasn't with the class. It was just me and him going around. And these kids were, Jackson, come with our class. Hi, Jackson. I had never seen that before. I had never really had seen a kid acknowledge my child. And the teacher came up to me and she said, they love him. They absolutely love him. They wish he was in our class all the time. And it just made me feel so good to know like he's in a good environment. And it's still like that when we go to his Christmas concert or open house or orientation, whatever. Teachers, the janitor, so many kids, older kids, younger kids. He's like Mr. Popular. I'm like, oh my gosh. And obviously it's not a popularity contest, but it just feels so good to know that he's accepted, that kids are learning. Because this is also important too, to teach this generation. He might look different, he might act different. And that's anybody. Any child can look different, act different. But how are we teaching them to treat them? And treat them with kindness, lead with respect. And that's something that we right now experience. And I hope it never goes away.
I think that's great. I think it's good that you picked up on, I mean, we all know our kids the best. You can tell when something's a little bit just like different, or you get that feeling in your gut. What would you say to a mom if she is like questioning like how you were? Is this normal? What should I do about this? Would you just say, go straight to the pediatrician, start there? Or what advice would you have?
Really, I think you have to trust your intuition. I think that goes for any mom, right? You are going to be your child's greatest advocate, period, point blank. And try to not let anyone minimize what those concerns are. It's also, you talk about getting on Google and you put in whatever the symptoms are, and then it comes up with all these list of things. But I do think they say don't Google it when your kid gets a paper cut, but you're still, what do I do? How do I fix this? Or how do I think you still, though, you have to do your due diligence in making sure that if you have concerns about specifically your child having a developmental delay or being neurodivergent, you have, try not to let that information overwhelm you, but still learn as much as you can. I also think not consuming your time solely on that, because that can be detrimental to your own mental health. That can take away from your focus on things that if you're not good, if I'm not good, I can't be my best self as a mother. So take breaks, ask for help, make sure that you have a solid support system around you. And I don't really have that experience, but some of the communities that I've been part of other autism mothers, they have family members that they've had to cut off because they constantly question, he's fine or she's fine, there's nothing wrong. And I think also having that mentality of this is your journey, you have to make that heard. And your child's not broken, but neither are you. He might look different, but that doesn't mean anything less. It's still a journey that's meant to be joyful and beautiful, even when it's hard.
And my sister-in-law, I don't really know where she got it from. I should have asked her that before this episode, but she has a tattoo that says different, not less. And I asked her what it was for years ago. I can't remember, Kara. I'm really sorry if you're listening, but I think about that just in so many aspects of just like motherhood. I remember like the mom guilt on me during my postpartum was so heavy. And I just wish someone would have been like, Athena, you're not less, you're just different. You just need help right now. It doesn't make you any less. It's hard. I think it's hard to realize that, but I think you're right. Like just knowing that, like almost taking that and using it as ammunition to get your child exactly what they need instead of taking it as a negative thing on you.
100%.
How was your mental health during that time? Did you have moments where you were really struggling?
So I've always had anxiety. I think a lot of us, we can all say that we have some sort of that, but I think it really increased when I was going through that process of trying to figure out what was going on. Like, what does this look like for the future? So definitely, I wouldn't say I suffered necessarily with depression. However, in 2021, we found out we were pregnant and we went to the doctor. They found a heartbeat. We came home. The due date was going to be February 2nd, 2022, 2222, which was so fun for me. I thought it was like, again, divine timing. And ultimately, after a couple of weeks, it was determined that it wasn't a successful pregnancy. And I think that's maybe where I suffered a little bit from that depression. In the moment, I didn't think that. But looking back on it, I was definitely masking a lot of my feelings and emotions. But I think that sometimes as women, and I started going to therapy, and my therapist at the time, she gave me this analogy of men and women are different. Women's brains are like, I think maybe I've told this to you before, but women's brains are like waffles. Men's brains are like spaghetti. And this is nothing to shade any men. I think there's the good analogy or a good comparison. So women can compartmentalize. When you think about a waffle, right? You pour syrup on it and there's squares that the syrup sits in. But at some point that syrup starts to seep into the waffle. And then you just keep filling it up with more syrup. It's gone. But ultimately the syrup is still there. You're still feeling that way, even though you might not understand that feeling or that thought or emotion is still there. Then it's spaghetti. You pour sauce on it and it just goes everywhere. And it's great. Everything's fine. Everything's peachy keen. I'm going to live my life. But women, especially mothers, I think maybe this applies more to mothers, in my opinion. You're wired that way. That's how we are wired to be, is you take things and you do something about it and then you move on, or you don't do something about it and then it's going to continue to fester.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, very thankful to have such a supportive family. Husband, number one, he's my rock. I could not do what I do day to day without my husband. I know that for a fact. I would be lost without him. He is my everything, but also our family. We have such a loving family and they truly have been there through every step of the way. And that's super helpful for me. Just knowing that I can call my sister or my brother or my mom or my dad or David's side. I have great in-laws. I've got great sister-in-laws, brother-in-laws. They're all amazing. Just knowing how supportive they are is super helpful too.
I love that. So that's a perfect segue. So what would you say, because following up that analogy, women we hold on to a lot of things. And I think that's just how we're wired differently than men. So what would you say to a husband or partner support person of that mom who might have a child they're trying to navigate through this, where to start, where to go? How would you encourage the support people to come and surround that mom when she's having that hard time?
So I think, again, being present is number one. You have to, and that looks differently for everybody. I think for me, that was what helped so much, is knowing, again, I could call anybody and they would be there at the drop of a dime. But also part of that is listening without trying to solve everything or solve the problem. And I think when you do have a loving relationship with your partner or your family, there's always that, and myself included, you always want to try and fix it. If there's something wrong, being the protective person I am, you want to fix it. And that listening, though, and just having that safe space is so important. Being also educating yourself and making sure that you understand. You don't have to agree with it, but try to understand the emotional load that can be immense that we're taking on. And sometimes that support might look like just, again, that safe space, shared silence, right? Maybe we cry together. Maybe you want to take Jackson and have a weekend with them. Great. Just so we can recharge, reboot. But I think validation, making sure that she doesn't feel crazy, validate those instincts, make sure that she knows that she's doing a good job. I think sometimes not everybody needs to hear that all the time, but it's also a nice reminder that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're not crazy. You're not losing it. You're doing what you should be doing. And with your heart, lead with your heart always.
Yeah. I love that. That's so good. That's so true. Yeah, it's harder when you're in it. I think when you look back, especially for you, you can look back and see it turned out great. Look where we are now. But in those moments, you were probably just like, where are we going to be here? So I think just hearing you say to be present and just surround that person with whatever they need. It's totally, you're right. Some people just want to be silent and watch a show or just have a snack or go get their nails done, whatever it is.
Your nails.
Whatever it is. I love that you said that because it's very true. Being present is so important. Yeah. Was there anything that we didn't touch on that really helped you along in Jackson's journey or with kind of where he's gotten today?
And I appreciate you giving me the platform to speak about this because I've never really talked about my journey outside of with my family. So I appreciate the opportunity. I think just, again, making sure that you know that there are services, that there's reputable resources, there's a community, there's an entire community that is so supportive. If you don't have that from a family standpoint, we understand each other. I joined groups on Facebook.
Tell us the name.
So it's local to Northeast Florida. I'm part of it's Autism Moms of Northeast Florida, Autism Moms of Clay County. So it's just been nice. Again, we are looking for Jackson and Service Ford. So I post down there, hey, anybody have any recommendations? You get flooded with information. You get messages. Add me, call me, let me help you. We live in a great community that we have neighbors that are super, super supportive. We've been lucky to be in an area that's been really great too. But I think, again, just find other parents that can relate on that level, whether that's online or in person. I've never really met anybody in person, but when I do meet other moms that at some point it might come up in conversation, that connection, it's like immediate. You're just like, see each other. Just knowing this is not a world that you're going to walk alone on, period. And you shouldn't have to, you know what I mean? This is something that is, again, a journey for everybody and it looks different for everybody. And I will say this too, I'm very lucky that journey for us looks the way that it does. I know that there's a lot more difficult journeys. And I think that's the part where I feel like I could make the most impact too, is knowing and I hate to say it, it could be like this, but it's not. So trying to find that grace of managing, again, how you feel about your personal journey, but also being sympathetic or empathetic of somebody else's journey that looks different. So yeah, I think ultimately one thing I would like people to take away from is just, again, it's not being neurodivergent or having the autism diagnosis. That's not the end of anything. It's not the end of a dream. It's not the end of this vision that you had when you got pregnant. It's the beginning of such a different, more beautiful one. I want to mention there's this poem that really resonated with me a couple of years ago, and I've shared this with a lot of my close friends and family. It's called Welcome to Holland. It's so powerful, and it speaks so much to, again, the path that you're on. It's uncertain. Some days are going to feel heavier than others, but there's so much light ahead. There's so much to look forward to and know that your child is capable, your child is worthy and full of potential. Not in spite of them being neurodivergent, but because they are capable, they are worthy, they are beautiful. Their potential is astronomical. And that's where having that understanding and support and love, it will just continue to grow. An advocate, being a listener, compassion, it goes a long way. And you don't have to have everything figured out today, tomorrow. You have to take it one step at a time, celebrate progress, small wins, big wins, and just trust your journey and know that hope is there. And sometimes there's going to be joy that's quieter. Sometimes the joy is going to feel different, but it's always true, real joy.
I love that. I thought of a question that's not on our list, and I don't want to make you cry again, but if I do, it's okay because we've already done that once. When Jackson told you he loved you, how old was he? And did you start bawling?
Let's see. He would have been almost 4 years old. We were living in our current house and it was on his bed. I think in the moment I was so excited more than I was like teary. And again, I think that's the celebration factor of it is like, you did it. And I remember also thinking back on that first interaction that I had with the OT and the speech therapist. And I wanted to call them so bad and tell them he finally did it. He finally said it. And it was honestly one of the greatest moments of my life. In that same time, he really was developing a lot. He started doing sign language and his ABCs. He knew sign language ABCs before he could even speak the ABCs. So it was
That's so
just witnessing that and knowing him not just saying it, but meaning it. Like he wasn't just saying, I love you because he heard it, right? With the epithelium. Sometimes he says things that he might not know what he's saying. He said it and he meant it. And that was just, such a great feeling. What a great feeling.
Yeah, I have full chills. So I can't even imagine being there. That's super, super special. Yeah. And good for you for just being such a strong advocate and not letting it get you down. I think that's really key too.
Yeah. One easy, day by day.
Yeah. One at a time. Now, what would you say if you had to pick one word or phrase to encompass this whole neurodivergent journey and where it's brought you? What would you say?
Beautiful. It's beautiful and I'll give you 2 words. Beautiful and perspective. It puts a lot of things in perspective. What's truly important? What are the things that we're going to go hard in on versus what doesn't really matter?
That's very true. Yeah. I'm just so glad that you joined us. I think you did fantastic.
Thank you so much. Seriously, this was actually therapeutic for me. I feel like this was therapeutic for me. Sometimes you can agree, right? As a mom, you're constantly doing what you're supposed to be doing and get caught up in the day-to-day, and that's normal. But it's nice to kind of take a step back and really reflect on how you got to that point. And I just appreciate it.
Oh, of course. I appreciate your time. You did fantastic. And it's one of those subjects. It's like you said, with if your kid's not typical, it's just another thing in society that is like such. So I feel like if we can talk about it more and bring more awareness and just truly educate why it's so important to get rid of those barriers, then we need to keep talking about it.
They're always going to be there, unfortunately. But I think I really appreciate how I think we're progressing in that regard. And hopefully we'll just continue.
Yeah. Thanks again, girlfriend. I'll see you soon.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys, for listening. We'll catch you next time.